I used to roll my eyes at my parents' superstitions as a child despite my own tendency toward magical thinking. We were never allowed to leave the house to see friends on Friday the 13th, and we certainly weren't allowed to say Bloody Mary 3 times or use Ouija boards. If we went on a family walk and were forced to be separated by an obstacle like a pole or a tree, we had to say the phrase bread and butter and walk on the same side together. Umbrellas couldn't be opened indoors. Placing shoes on the counter was an immediate invitation for a long-winded lecture. Pennies were only to be picked up if on their heads. My brother and I knew not to walk under ladders ever, and we understood when it was appropriate to knock on wood or toss salt over our shoulders. As someone who happily greets black cats on the street, these hand-me-down superstitions no longer hold any power over me. Magical thinking is a subtype that I've struggled with for 40 years and never had the language to describe until recently. Frequent, intrusive thoughts bulldoze their way into my brain, telling me that if I don't perform a specific action, something terrible will happen. I used to have to sing an extensive series of songs to our children before they went down for naps. I felt like if I didn't, they'd die in their sleep. It drained me of already depleted energy, singing my own iteration of Wheels on the Bus with over a dozen people doing various actions on the vehicle. This undoubtedly puzzled my partner, who could plunk the kids down in their cribs where they'd doze seemingly effortlessly in their sleep sacks. My process was laborious. My mouth was dry from singing as I doubled down on the dehydration by nursing them at the same time. Always making sure both sides of my chest were deflated while logging their feedings in my Baby Center app for literal years. It felt like just as soon as I got them down for a nap, they were awake again. Don't forget, you both need to kiss their ceramic frog goodnight. And then the owl. And then the Donald Duck, my brain would say, just as I was making progress. But of course I wouldn't forget. OCD is tricky at times because what might appear like a wholesome bedtime routine of kissing our ceramic figures goodnight can snowball into a massively time-consuming process. One night, when our oldest was a toddler, I muttered, "Sleep tight, don't let the bedbugs bite." They thought I meant bugs were literally going to eat them in bed, so I laughed and said, "That's just pretend." Every night that followed for at least 8 years, I felt like I had to say the phrase, "Sleep tight, don't let the bedbugs bite, that's just pretend," or something terrible would happen to them. As much as it was a compulsion for me to say it, it also became an expected comfort for the kids to hear. I finally worked up the courage to not say it for the first time in nearly a decade the evening of my OCD diagnosis. It felt like the right time to try, and as much as I wanted to whisper it to myself in the hallway as I walked back downstairs, I didn't. I haven't said it for the 5 days since. That might sound trivial, but for me it felt like an on your left Avengers Assemble moment.